Harris, Brianna Kupfer was working alone in the store on that fateful day, and according to police, texted a friend and said someone who had come into the store was giving her, quote, a bad vibe. Minutes later, the 24-year-old lay on the store floor, dying, covered in blood, stabbed, police believe, by the person who was giving her that bad vibe. Now they've issued an urgent appeal to find 31-year-old Sean Laval Smith, who they say was seen leaving the store via a back alley, and 30 minutes later in this video from a nearby 7-Eleven, calmly walking in, paying for what looks like a vaping pen, and equally calmly walking out. Laval Smith is believed to be homeless. He's got a long criminal record across the country. The most serious charge against him appears to be firing a weapon into an occupied vehicle. That incident happening not here in California, but in South Carolina, with Laval Smith freed there on a $50,000 bond, having, according to our sources, put up less than 10% of that bond in Charleston, South Carolina. Meantime, police say, Harris, that Laval Smith is out here, believed to still be in LA somewhere, probably, they say, using the bus or local train system, and they say no one should approach him because he is very clearly armed and very dangerous. Harris?
Jonathan, we'll stay on it. Thank you very much. For more on this, I want to bring in Joe Gamaldi, National Vice President of the Fraternal Order of Police. Joe, always great to have you in focus. I first want to start off with what we're seeing unfold right now and the types of crimes.
Yeah, well, I think what you're seeing right now is just violent criminals getting out over and over again thanks to rogue DAs like George Gascón in LA, because in his environment, we've had murders go up 71% in LA. It's been a complete disaster there. Crime and disorder everywhere you look. You have 30 municipalities voting no confidence vote in him. If he had any shame, if he had any integrity whatsoever, he would resign in shame from his position. And you know, when we talk about these horrific crimes that happened to that young girl like Brianna, I think we forget about the families that are impacted by this. Her entire life was taken from her. This family is going to have to recover from this. And nobody stops to think about the things that they have to go through on the back end of this. And the worst part about it is the DAs who continue to push these policies that have caused so much pain, so much despair, so much trauma, they have no intention of changing whatsoever, and history is going to judge them for their cowardice.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we have to live through what their decisions are. Like, history can look back. We're looking into the abyss right now. While you were talking, we had on screen something, and I want to pop it back up, because I am curious to know what you think of this latest videotape. And if you're familiar enough to talk about this, Brianna Kupfer died, and now we have the video of what happened with the suspect after her death. What do you make of what we're seeing in terms of, you know, what we face right now?
You know, I think what we're truly facing is monsters like the suspect who brutally murdered, or who is suspected of brutally murdering young Brianna. They don't fear the criminal justice system anymore. He casually walked out of that furniture store, casually goes to the 7-Eleven and picks up a new vape pen. They don't fear being caught because they know they're going to be let out on a low bond, they're not going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and they're going to get out once again to just continue to offend. Look at this individual. He's been through the criminal justice system for the last 11 years. Most recently, he was picked up for resisting arrest and theft charges just a few months back. And had the court system and the DAs done their job, this young woman would still be alive with us today.
And I think about all the cops, too. I mean, they see this going on. You lead them at the FOP, and they can't stop it. It's out of their hands. All they can do is do the rearresting and do their jobs, their portion of it, but they see it. Again, he is a suspect. All of what we're saying, we don't know all of the details yet, but the videotape is there, and we can certainly speak to that. New York City, brand new mayor Eric Adams was among the hundreds of people at a vigil last night for Michelle Go. Go was pushed onto the subway tracks, and she died after what police say was a mentally ill homeless man who shoved her. There was an oncoming train. Critics say Mayor Adams needs to do more to address violent crime, particularly on the subway, especially after comments like these.
Want one crime on our subway system. But we know that public safety is not only actual, but it's perceived. And when you have an incident like this, the perception is what we're fighting against.
However, the New York Post says the fear is warranted. Police data show subway crime is up by 65% in the first 2 weeks of this year. Mayor Adams telling our own Brian Yennis just yesterday. So you heard what he said on Saturday. This was on Tuesday. So as we deal with the crime problem, we also have to deal with the fact that people feel unsafe. That's the dual battle that I had, because we don't do them both together. If we don't, we fail. I would add to that a few more of his words, because, I mean, I'm reading from that interview. What do you make of this? On day one, I took the subway system. I felt unsafe. I saw homeless everywhere. People were yelling in the trains. How did we go from that, him taking office a few days ago, to, oh, no, it's all in your heads, to, oh, it's both? What is going on?
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with the mayor here when he says it's just fear. This is reality for New Yorkers. Murders are up 45% in New York. Shootings are up 102%. You mentioned that subway crime is up 65%.
Yes.
And he wants to say it's just fear? No, it is reality. And, you know, I applaud the mayor that he's actually talking about crime and that it appears that he wants to do something about it. But right after we had that horrible tragedy where Ms. Go was shoved on there, this monster shoved someone on the tracks, and we have a city council member come out and say, we really need to erect barriers around these subways to stop people from pushing people. Really?
Wow.
I mean, I cannot put into words how stupid of a comment that is. Instead of saying, let's vehemently prosecute these monsters that do this, let's make sure we have a police officer on every single subway tracks to prevent this, it's, no, let's put barriers up. And, you know, here's an idea. When someone pushes someone on the subway tracks, they get arrested, they go to jail, they don't get a bond so they can't get out and do it again, you give them 25 years in prison. Maybe that'll slow it down. But, you know, I'm not even sure that'll happen in Manhattan now, because this new DA just let out his new policies, that revolving door criminal justice system, just like all these other Soros-backed DAs. And it went over like such a lead balloon, Harris, that he's actually hiring a crisis communications team to help with the messaging. Well, let me save you some money, pal, or you could just pay me that money. Prosecute criminals, defend victims, and in short, do your job.
And you know, your organization that represents the most police in the country is coast to coast. So you know LA, you know New York, and you pointed out what we're starting to see as a public, and that is that liberal-leaning DAs who got funding from George Soros, who has this idea in his head, whatever it may be, through his organization, Fair Action, that this is how we're supposed to live. Like, you protect the criminals and you protect the victims, but you talk more about the criminals and protecting them. I mean, you're right. We're starting to see it. They're very similar types of justice systems along the road of these DAs. A new report now estimates that the United States murder rate in 2021 hit its highest level in 25 years. FBI numbers show 6.9 murders per 100,000 people last year. That's the most we've seen since 1996. Most major American cities, including Chicago, New York, LA, saw an uptick in homicides last year. Joe.
You know what, Harris? We have a sickness that is infecting our communities that we as a society has allowed to spread, and it ain't COVID. It's rogue prosecutors, it's the unmitigated disaster that's bail reform, and it's the demonization of law enforcement. And if all of these things are allowed to continue, we are going to lose our urban communities for a generation. No banks are going to move in to help those communities. No grocery stores are going to want to open there. We're going to continue to have food deserts. The very best trained teachers aren't going to want to take the inner city jobs, and it's just going to be so tragic, because the people that live in those communities deserve to have the same opportunities as everyone else, and they deserve to prosper. And if we don't turn this thing around, they don't have a chance.
Joe Gamaldi.